guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. And I'll call you and let you know what I find. All right, Mr. D, bye-bye. Gentlemen, ladies, and fine doll hair amongst all of you children and smelly fart fellers. Today we're going to work on a Stinger 277. And then we got ourselves the only manufacturer amplifier in the world, according to RM Italy, even though I guess Ameritron, Henry, Dentron, all them other guys are out there, Demco, none of them guys actually exist according to RM Italy. These are the only assembly line manufactured amplifiers in the world. Me personally, not very impressed with these units. Never have been, never going to be. No matter how much RM Italy tries to suckle upon mother's little boob, it's not going to ever impress me. These are a very entry-level amplifier, but they work. That's where I'm going to end that statement. So what we got here is one of these two does not work because it got too hot and some parts fell off the board. The Stinger, old school Stinger that's over here, it is working, but we need to give it a little bit of a safety check, and we're going to get rid of some stuff like the evil butt splice. This is evil, wrong and sad. I know when you're in a pinch, we've got to power our dildos somehow, but this is not good. I seen one of these once that was in a guy's little PT Cruiser that was coming through town one time. I'll just say that the first part of his handle is sleepy and the last portion of it might be dog. He was running one of these off his cigarette lighter in his PT Cruiser. He had his radio and the amplifier attached to the cigarette lighter, and there was no less than 9 butt splices from the cigarette plug adapter to the Stinger and to the radio. And I remember I about fell down on the ground laughing my ass off. But I'm not going to lie to you, that thing was talking, because we talked to him for like 30 miles out of town. He was talking. I mean, that little PT Cruiser with a little Wilson 1000 mag mount on it was talking like crazy, but I don't know, there's just something about me that says don't touch that, don't offer to fix anything, just smile and nod. And I seen that one day, and that was the last time I seen one of these little Stinger amplifiers. It's been a couple of years, about 10. So on that note, let's get into the meat of her. And we're not talking balls deep, we're talking fingers deep now. I shall return. Well, we're in luck. My friend Mr. Brian Smith has got replacement transistors. So, you know, being one of 4 authorized HG import dealers in the United States at the moment. Okay. So what we have here is, and I got to give these guys credit for speed of disassembly. I only had to disassemble this many screws, and I have the whole board out, separated. I can see why they build like this, ease of manufacture. I got to give them credit where credit's due. There's some neat little stuff that goes on in here. This is our primary transmit receive relay that's over here. Now up here in the front, there's 2 more relays. Okay, this is for your bias circuit, by the way. But there's 2 more relays, and this is how we control the high and low function here. The brains for the remote, which they've done with a phone, or it's not phone, that's a LAN connection, jack, is all up in this right-hand corner. And also the same op-amp IC is what drives the LED scale that's up in here. There's LEDs, little packet LEDs. This is our bias trim pot, or our actual base trim pot for the bias, and then this is the controller trim pot for the IC. All your positive currents got to go through these 2 little chokes, this one here, and this one here, and this one here, and this one here. So when I open this one up, there was a quarter piece of an envelope there, and there's a diode that's in here, and it came from this portion of the circuitry here. So that leads us to the conclusion of what's going on. So the 12 volt positive current. Here's the plug, the accessorized plug that goes in the back of the amplifier here. Comes in on this post, comes around, goes on this trace, and passes through this little tiny fuse bus bar. This is the cruxus of most of the RM Italy's problems. They lose so much amperage in that fuse holder, it's not even funny. So the 12 volt positive comes in on this side of the fuse holder and goes out on this side of the fuse holder, and then we have this very narrow pathway that the positive current goes from here and then to here. So in theory, because these aren't centrally fed, these two transistors are going to get more current than these two transistors over here. But because the traces are interrupted, the via pass-through pads for the 12 volt, we have a bottleneck that takes place right here, causing these components to get hot in operation. This is not anything new. You could probably overcome that very simply by just bypassing these fuses and soldering directly across these little tiny fuse bars. Okay, little glass fuses that are in here. Just changing it that much is going to add significantly more amperage and more power for it to be able to pass through here. So what we will do before we reassemble this is we're gonna build up a little bit better trace system here. The computer, remember the computer model says that this is good. So the guy sat down in front of his computer and modeled this whole thing out. Now the thing that I do take away from this that I thought was way cool, because this makes it better than X-Force in a lot of different ways, is with these cut traces, they've got little ringed eyelets that come off the transistor and go to ground. And then also in the center trace, they've got a pass-through via with a brass journal in it. This bolts directly to ground. So the center of the circuitry is ground. Also out here, ground. So this tab, and look at how big this trace is that's carrying ground. Look, once again, ground going to the two center traces. Same thing on this side, pass-through eyelets, ground eyelets. When the ground current comes in on the ground rail, it's going down, it's hitting this trace and going directly here to ground. And also over here, directly to ground. Guess what? They're using the heatsink to carry the ground current instead of a trace. We spoke about this in many, many videos. You give credit where credit's due. It's nice that they bothered to embrace that. The guy that designed this board, good job. Downside is the inefficiency of the transformers and, well, poor positive 12 volt rail guy. There's a guy here in town. His name starts with a B. He's got a little RM Italy like this, and all we did when we got in there is we tested it. It did about 400 watts. We went and we bypassed these fuses, just soldered, literally took copper and stuffed it in there and soldered it. He went up to 550 watts just by bypassing the fuses. Let that sink in for a minute, guys at RM Italy, because I know you're going to watch this video. If you're going to provide them a fuse, provide it so that they can plug it in at the power source at the battery. Not in the amplifier, there's too much loss. So having it closer to the source of generation and all the way up by the battery, much better for all kinds of different reasons, and your engineers will explain that to you. I don't need to go and do that here. What does lead me pause is not this. This is nothing. That means nothing to me. It's this one resistor here that's burnt. What that's telling me is that there's an imbalance in the circuit. Being that nothing else here is burnt down, and just that resistor is, we got a 50-50 chance. We're going to go in and repair this. We're probably going to bypass these fuses in a way. We're going to beef up that trace underneath, and we're going to make it so it can carry a little bit more current. We're going to run it, and we got a 50-50 chance. Either the guy had a problem SWR-wise, and that's what caused this resistor to blow apart and overheat and desolder itself from the board, or one of these transistors has gone to ground. We have very small 10 ohm quarter watt resistors, and usually when one of these goes to ground, it's going to pop that resistor and take it with it. He couldn't have been driving it that hard because the input resistor here is not burnt at all. So, well, I don't know. We'll have to run it, but I wanted to see what kind of condition our traces were on the bottom side. I've had a couple of these come through, they burn up right here. And as you can see, we got flux cooking out here out of the board. Ew, flux. Yeah, this pathway right here, specifically here, is not wide enough to carry enough current. So we're getting a bottleneck, and then we're getting heat migration into the board, as you can see with the traces, and we got cold solder work taking place here. Pretty clear on what's going on. So other than that, this is a very interesting design. I really like how they're using the heatsink to carry ground uniformly throughout the amplifier. That's a good. So let's go ahead and let's clean this up. We're going to do our magic to it and put it back together, and let's give it a test hit and see what happens. We shall return. So this only took a couple minutes to fix, really. These two transistors were popped. So I pulled the whole board out, as you guys seen in the last segment. What I did is I took a jumper wire that goes from here and goes across this trace. I'll show it on this one because I'm going to do the same modification on this one. I just wanted to get this put back together so I could test it. You'll see down in here some Captain tape, and that's to help act as an insulator for the wire that's underneath there. I'll show you, like I said, in the next video. But this is pretty straightforward. Let me turn the amp off. 1,000 watt slug and peak, 1,000 in average, 5 watt slug and reverse back from the bird, 10,000 watt dummy load. We're going to use a 2950, 5 watt slug between the 2950, of course, and the RM Italy 500. Pumping a whole whopping 20 watts into it. Not too bad of a pass-through tune. The preamp. Let's see, preamp. Preamp is working. So let's turn the amp on. We're going to start out in low. 20 watts of drive in low. 400 watts. Oh, we were in medium, pardon me. Low. About 250. Medium. About 400. And in high. About 425, 430 watts. Not a bad deal. Input tune had not too bad. So we're going to loop back around. I'm going to leave the lid off of this one. We're going to loop back around here in a minute. And once I get this one gone through, we're going to put fans on both of these units for this guy to help keep them from burning down. But this has got an HG 1446 in it. The JIFs are also made by HG, so these can intermix, but there's a matched set of transistors here and a matched set of transistors here. HGs and the STIs, so same company, manufactured from the same company, so they kind of interchange with each other, but they're not in the same circuit. This is its own amp and this is its own amp, so there's no imbalance issues. What I do want to do is we're seeing 430 watts out of this thing. I want to bypass these fuses, and I want to see how much more output power we get by bypassing the fuses, which I'm pretty sure we're going to see more. So give me just a second. So I just added some quick jumpers to it. Not all that impressive. About 10 more watts, give or take. 200 bird. Still about 430, 400 watts, so working pretty much the same. Guarantee there's going to be a lot more amperage, less amperage restriction going on with this old girl. So, okay, we're done with this one. Let's slide on over here to amp number 2. I think it's pretty important that we start here on this one. So, we're looking at the seal on this particular box. And this is just a random RM Italy. It's the KL506. Now what I wanted to show you is, let's go around over here or shut the amp off. Here's our spectrum. Okay. We're starting at 1.2 megahertz. Our center is 27.27 and our stop is 53 megahertz. Our span is 51 kcs. Our sample rate is over here in the corner, and that's our millisecond time. I wanted to show you something, the reason nobody ever bitches about these boxes. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hello, 1 2 1 2. My name is Mike D, and I get respect. Your cash and your jewelry is what I expect. Very clean, for the most part. So let's go over here and we're going to go to measure. Occupied bandwidth. I'll show you something. So look at that. Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Doesn't deviate. That's crazy. At least I know I don't have to spend a lot of time right out the box trying to get rid of a bunch of harmonics. So let's go ahead and bust this one down. I want to show you what I did for the power modifications on this one to make it so we're going to modify this one so we don't have the problems that this one had. We'll start there next. Let me show you power output in just a second. I got to change batteries. Okay, new battery. Good to go for another 2 hours here. I also want slug and PEP. Hello. Are we in PEP? No, we're in 2X. That explains everything. Let's click that down to 1X. Hello. Hello. Now this is on 12 volts, like if your car was off. Hello. These numbers here, with some simple mathematics, will tell us that our bird meters are reading true. Period. That we brought the spectrum analyzer into play. We know how many amps it's consuming, at what volts, divided by efficiency, which is usually about 62%. Now we brought the voltage up to 14. Hello. Hello. So we're cruising on high. And we're getting about 400 watts out of it. So let's go in here and do our little bit of our modifications on 14 volts, and we're going to come back and we'll show you what the difference is just by adding one little wire. I think we're going to get a little bit more power out of it, just like this one. This one's cruising about 430, 440, somewhere in there, with the same amount of drive with the same radio. So it's real simple. First we got to break the seal. Now if you didn't know, this plug actually unscrews. Pops right out of the back. Bloop. Bloop. And then we got to undo these 3 screws. So let's grab our little drill here. Let's undo these 3 screws. Then we're going to undo these 2 screws, which are into the heat sink. And surprisingly enough, these come apart just like a Palomar does. Alright. So, just broke that seal with my thumb, you guys. Let's flip it around. You're going to want to keep these screws separate because they've got a lock washer on them. Now, go around to the inside. Start over here with a bias. Okay. Take the little bias screw out. Transistor screw. The ground screw, which is awesome, by the way. Next transistor screws. Next ground screw. Transistor screw. Transistor screw. Ground screw. Transistor screw. Transistor screw. Ground screw. Ground screw. So I think there's one more. Oh, that's it. Okay. So now, a little bit of upward pressure, and out comes the board out of the heatsink stock. So, like we covered in the last video, it's this trace right here that we're wanting to beef up and add a little bit more current carrying capability. Give me a second. Before we get too carried away, I want to look down in here and look at this. As you guys can see, there's a little fingerling. What is that? I don't know what that is. And then the RCA jack that's over here in the corner for the remote key is not soldered in. So we're going to fix that. Give me a minute. Okay, so we resoldered down this. This is a little piece of leftover solder that was sticking over here. And then we went through and we added a piece of Teflon wire and soldered it to the two traces to help carry a little bit more current through that bridgeway. We added a layer of Kapton tape, which has got an incredibly low dielectric to it, otherwise it will not conduct. And then we added a couple layers of Kapton tape over here to help prevent any arcing. We made sure that if we look here, what we're focusing on is this. By the way, this is the brass insert journal that they put through the via on the board to suspend the unit from the heatsink. All our solder work is down below this, so we don't have to worry about an arc when we go and we put the cabinet together. And then we've added the Kapton tape as a secondary protectant. Went ahead and added a new layer of thermal compound to all the points on the board that are going to marry up, which is going to be the transistors and the bias transistor. And that's it. Let's put it back together and try it. On a passing out, passing along, passing down note, when you go and reinsert the screws, do not use a screw gun. Make sure to use a screwdriver. These are very delicate machine screws that will, and I guarantee you this, strip out and break. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. No questions. Will happen. So, before we go and put the lid back on this thing, we've now got to come up with some sort of mount, because I want to mount a fan up here and give this thing a little bit more chance at life. I want to put cooling on it. And the other thing I want to talk about is that we could easily remove these 1446s and put HG2879s in here. We'd have to change a few components. Like we'd have to add capacitance here, This has only got an 800 and, is that 820 or 620? It's a 620 puff capacitor here. Is that flux? Yeah, flux. Change that to 1,000. The turn ratio is appropriate. Output combiner turn ratio inappropriate, so we'd have to modify that. And then we'd probably want to get rid of most of the input pad situation that we've got going on here. So, on that note, and then we'd have to overcome the low, medium, and high switch that's on the front up here. Make it a direct drive. And I bet you we'd get a whole lot more power out of this. But once again, the power circuit is inadequate and the quantity of heatsink is woefully inadequate. So other than that, it'd be just changing out the transistors. Now, a lot of you guys are going to ask what this diode here is for. This harks back to Messenger. way back to in the beginning. And what happens here is they're passing the ground reference for the bias circuit across this diode. And as we all know, the diode acts as a one-way check valve for the magic little pixies. So that valve ratio, otherwise its ability to do its job, changes as the diode heats up. So as the box becomes hotter, the amount of bias it takes to control this thing on sideband goes down. So therefore, that voltage changes due to the heat affecting the component. Old school trick. It's worked well for 30 years. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you guys have ever wondered what the diode is across the top of the transistor, that's what it's for. In the messenger amplifier, if this was the messenger and the transistor's over here, that diode sits over here against the board. Palomar did the same thing, and you'll find that most Kenwood and ICOMs in the 80s and 90s did the same thing. They had a diode that laid across the top of the transistor, and that's what it's there for. So, okay, let's hook this thing up and give it a quick test run. I wouldn't want to pass a whole lot more current through it than this, but that is also held in with screws. Thanks, amazing. Lovely little connection. Same amount of drive, same everything. So we squeaked a little bit more juice out of it. Nothing much to get too excited about. I mean, we're not going to jump up and down for joy or anything. But now, what we get to do is we're going to have to punch a hole in the back of the cabinet. We're going to put a grommet in it. And we're going to have to create something that we can hook some fans to this thing with. Which my favorite technique on big open finned heatsink like this is a small piece of rubber that we stick in here, and then we'll run a screw into it, and when the screw hits the rubber, it'll expand, it'll bite against the edge of the heatsink fin, and it'll keep the fan firmly attached. That way you don't have to drill any holes in the heatsink, no zip ties, no glue. It's relatively mess free, and if the customer doesn't like having a fan on there, all he's got to do is slide the lid off, unsolder the two wires that are on the inside, pull the wire out, and he's got a nice rubberized grommeted hole in the back, and there's no scars left of the heatsink. Pretty straightforward, right? So, through the magic of cinematography, here we go. Okay, brother, you all set up, man. We put a single 120 millimeter fan, and the reason it's offset has something to do a little bit with the heatsink fin placement, of course, but that the transistors are actually on this end of the amplifier. See what I'm saying? We just went in and put a little grommet, attached a zip tie for some strain relief, hooked it up to the on-off switch. Now that thing is on there, it's not coming off. But if you ever want to remove it, all you got to do is undo the two screws, and then take a small screwdriver and just pull the little rubber feed out, unsolder the two wires from the inside, and slide the wires off. It's all set. And the way it's wired right now is to the on-off switch. So of course, if you use the remote, when you engage the remote, it's going to turn the fan on. That's as loud as it is. I'll put my body between the air conditioning unit . It's super quiet. So, on that note, they're both done. Everything's working perfectly, just the way it should. So let me put the lid on this one, and then let's go take a quick look inside this little stinger. Shall be right back. Well, you sent it here for a wellness check, and I've got a good report for you. Now, this is the cheap, easy way to check if your preamp's working or not, right? Right now, there's some technician out there going, "Oh my God, that's not the best way to do it. You're supposed to use a tone generator and a penis pump and 3 cock rings and a freaking analyzer." And I know about all of that. It's just cheaper and easier to do this. Turn the volume up on the radio, on video, and turn it on or off. Okay, listen. This thing works fine. I wanted to show you something. What we're going to focus on the L circuitry right now is this. this little piece of ferrite. This is your input transformer. This little piece of ferrite has got a little wire that runs through it and goes directly to ground. The reason I need to point that out is because we got this little switch on the front that says SSB. Focus here. Not here. Touch the screen. Touch. Focus right on that LED. There you go. Okay. This little switch here says SSB. It does not mean it's sideband. This is an AM only box. It's Class C. I mean, theoretically, you can run that on sideband. It'll work for a little while. It's not going to work the greatest. You're going to sound a little bit chopped up. They're going to tell you you're not sounding right. And you're going to be like, what the hell? It comes down to it at the end of the day is that this thing is Class C. There should be a little bit of wheat voltage that's put onto this, about 300 millivolts. And just a few microamps. All it takes is worth the current to be put onto this for this thing to be full class over Class B. Not AB, but Class B. And then you can run sideband. What we did do is we got rid of old butt splice here. And we got rid of the worst connector in the universe. These things are good for a radio. And not a 100-watt radio. I'm saying like a 35-watt radio. Okay? That's all these are good for. So what we did is we put an actual Anderson clip on here, a 50 amper, because in theory this is going to pull about 25-30 amps. 25-30 amps won't happen through this. Definitely won't happen through this. Yes, it'll technically pass that much amperage. No, is it going to pass it efficiently? Absolutely not. You're going to end up having heating in the butt splices and you're going to have some problems. I don't know how this works so well for my friend Rick. But he was running a radio, this amplifier, and had like 19 trillion butt splices on it going to a cigarette plug adapter. It was amazing. But man, he was talking. We could hear him for miles. Okay, real quick. 1,000 watt slug and peak. 1,000 and average, 5 watt slug and reverse. 10,000 watt dummy load. 5 watt slug between the 2950, of course, and the little Stinger 277. We're going to start out on low. Well, actually, we're going to start out with nothing. Show you drive. Whole whopping 5 bird, 7 bird maybe. Whopping 20 watts peak. Let's go ahead and turn the amplifier on. 200 watts on low. Go to high. 225, 230. Which is pretty on par. 2 transistors in here, which are the exact same thing, 1446s, is the 4 transistors that are in each one of these. So, times that by 2, we're going to have our 450 watts, like what we're getting out of these 2 units. So, this is the neatest design. This is a screwless case. I got to give credit where credit's due. Oh, the last thing I want to show is talking through it. You got to show that. Because if there's a standing wave that happens between this coax connector and this coax connector at all that really does is it diminishes, 1, your ability to transmit, but 2, the most important thing, is it diminishes your receive. You want to have a low standing wave going through each one of your amplifiers. That way it doesn't cut down on your receive. I've done receives, or done just the pass-through tune on guys' boxes, and they're like, wow, I went from not being able to hear, I mean, they'd hear somebody at like 910S units, a local guy. We put the amp back in line after we do the pass-through receive. Now the guy's hitting him at 25. It works both ways. You got to make it so that the RF wants to pass through the circuit, either going out or coming back in. That's the reason that's so important. So, just wanted to show that off. Ha da 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 da. Works perfect. Needless to say, we're done. This thing's got little tabs on the bottom of the amp lid. And this thing is held down by tension. It is freaking slick. Little tabs are designed to go around the fins. So it goes around the heatsink stock and then over the fins. The fact that we've got this much metal mass underneath the 2-pill, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. Remember, if you need to put a fuse in, we put that in where at, guys? Where's the fuse go? By the battery. That's right, and as close as possible. Okay, so on that note, I never understood why people put fuses right at the unit. If something goes wrong inside the unit, it's going to blow up the transistors and you're not going to protect yourself with the fuse. Oh, but what if there's a short in a wire? The short here, if you have a short here, you're not protecting the unit in any way. Where the fuse needs to be is up at the power source. Think about it. Think about it. Okay. What I'm saying is if there's a short in the circuit, you want to cut the power off all the way at the source, which is the battery or the alternator. You don't want to cut it off at the unit, because then you still got hot wire going all the way back to the battery, which normally where you're going to have any kind of short's going to be back here, this direction in the electrical circuit. So the fuse here going into the unit is almost worthless. Almost worthless. I'm not saying it's completely worthless, because we could have a chafe mark here on the wire where it passes through the grommet, and eventually that might short out. Does that save you, or does the fuse at the battery save you? It's the fuse at the battery. If you have a fuse at the battery, it's going to have a higher amp load on it, and it's going to go away long before this one decides it's going to have a bad day. Just saying. Gentlemen, my name is BBI, and without a shadow of a doubt, I'm the biggest mud dog, not a hope. Boo-hoo, woe is me. There ain't no doubt about that, though. Guys, look. These videos take a long time to put together. A long time. If I didn't have to video these things, I would have been done on these yesterday, but here we are again on this day, finishing up. So, on that note, brother, your two 300 watt RM Italies are done. The KL506s, the two of them, the twins. And your Stinger 277, completed. And ready to come home. I appreciate you sending them out here. I appreciate you taking the patience and waiting for me to go and work through the massive pile of projects that were in front of you. Now guys, I got to jump gears. I've got an SB200 that I got to do, an SB 220 I've got to do. I've got a Kenwood over there I've got to do. I got an AgCom I got to work on. I got a bunch of ham gear coming up. A bunch of it. So be ready. More video porn is coming, and it's coming soon. Gentlemen, I got to go. Appreciate everybody dialing in, tuning in, turning the volume up, and checking out what we got going on out here. If you got a question on anything, don't hesitate to call me at this number. No, I am not taking any new amp builds. Still not planning on it. Don't see it coming in the future. Just giving you guys all an update. Just working on repairs and doing my little thing, poking along out here in Idaho. On that note, time to put the lid back on this little guy and get it on down the road. Gentlemen, I'll see you. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Bye.